Hitler, more than 25 million of its people died on the battlefields. Spain's official position in the war has always maintained its non-involvement. However, tens of thousands of Spaniards fought on both sides. Germany's invasion of Poland in September of 1939 came just months after Spain's civil war had ended, with the victory of General Francisco Franco's nationalist forces. The war in Spain, from 1936 to 1939, can be seen as a preliminary battleground for the European powers, with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy providing essential material, military, and ideological support for Franco, and the Soviet Union backing the loyalist Republican cause. Democracies such as Britain and the United States opted not to get involved in the Spanish conflict, so that only volunteers from these countries and others took part in the fighting, with the largest grouping comprised of anti-fascists in the International Brigade. By the outbreak of the Second World War, Spain had already suffered its own devastation. Hundreds of thousands of Spaniards, fleeing the fighting and the ensuing dictatorship, sought refuge in France, the Soviet Union, Mexico, Argentina, and other Latin American countries. In Spain, Franco ruled over a famished and frightened people, as both food production and industry had been destroyed during the war. Historians today, with access to far more documents than ever before, have found evidence that Franco would have liked to have returned the favor to his allies Mussolini and Hitler, but in 1939, Spain was in no position, geopolitically or economically, to join another war. It wasn't until the fall of neighboring France in 1940 that Franco was able to provide support as a so-called non-belligerent ally to Germany. This status is not recognized internationally, but through it, the Spanish government could define the material and military support it provided the Axis powers. Some 47,000 Spaniards enlisted by Franco to support Hitler's troops on the Eastern Front formed the División Azul, the Blue Division, which had a permanent contingent of over 22,000 men. Of them, 4,954 died during the war. Their families received pensions and recognition by the dictatorship, which treated the veterans of the División Azul as heroes. However, after Hitler's defeat, the Franco regime sought to revise its history, diminishing the visibility of its fascist ties to prepare its future relations with the United States. Historian Joan Maria Tomàs has found evidence that the Franco regime had wanted to join the Axis powers since 1939. The historian notes that as soon as France had fallen in 1940, Franco did everything he could to offer Hitler Spain's entry into the war.
But what is new, what we know now, is that from October of 1939, Spain was already preparing the war against the Allies. At the time, France and Great Britain. It was important to discover that, because after Ende, the Franco dictatorship rewrote its history in order to hide what had really happened. And so it was important to discover that Franco had wanted to enter the war in June 1940, but that Franco, the Nationalist Army, and the Phalangists had really wanted to take part since October of 39.
La espero. Ustedes contienen la expansión del comunismo. Hemos sido siempre amigos. En la historia no hay una página de enemistad con ustedes.
Spain's foreign minister between 1940 and 1942, Ramón Serrano Súnez, who also happened to be Franco's brother-in-law, was an open admirer of Hitler's, and in a public statement to the German people said, "I love you and desire your victory. I expect it. You have contained the spread of communism, and we have always been friends. In all of our history, we have never been enemies." In another address, the foreign minister, representing Franco's Phalange, Spain, reiterated the government's loyalty to the Führer and the German people, yesterday, today, and always.
España, conquista de Franco, trae al Führer del pueblo alemán su cariño y su amistad, y su lealtad de ayer, de hoy y de siempre.
While the Blue Division represented official Spanish combatants in the war, the number of Spanish anti-fascist fighters was much higher, and they came from an immense pool of Republican exiles. Of 1939, France received nearly 500,000 refugees from the Spanish Civil War. Women, children, and the aged, Republican soldiers, militia, and civilians. While the French authorities, overwhelmed by the massive arrival of desperate, hungry people, expedited transport connections to Mexico or South America, by the time the Second World War broke out, France's refugee camps were overcrowded. Male Spanish refugees were given 3 options to serve in the war: to join the Free French forces, the Foreign Legion, or to work in agriculture or industry for the state. In the course of the war, another 60,000 Spanish Republicans joined the French resistance, mostly as guerrillas. The French were grateful to the Spaniards. The first Allied military unit to enter Paris when it was liberated in August 1944 was the 9th Armored Company, comprised almost entirely of Spaniards of the Leclerc Division. The company's tank, named after the Spanish river and site of the famous Civil War battle, the Ebro, fired the first shots against the German artillery, and the soldiers that had turned the course of the Battle of Paris were Spaniards. 6 days later, after the Germans' final capitulation, Allied troops entered the city in triumph, and the 9th Armored Company marched under the colors of Spain's Republican flag.